Button. Okay, I've learned something new today. How to turn on this new mic. Welcome, everyone. Nice to see you. I'm so glad to see you here tonight. So my name is Licia Rester-Frazee, and I'm the Managing Director of Programs, Admissions, and Marketing here at the University of Santa Monica. And it's delightful to be here, and also for all those who are streaming, we have lots of folks online as well. So before we begin, I wanted to start with just a little housekeeping here. So you can see that we have cameras in the room. We are streaming tonight, and I can see from my vantage point how gorgeous all of you are. And if for some reason any of you don't want to be on the camera, that's really okay. We have seats over to the side that won't be filmed. So if you want to move over there, that's really fine. If you don't, great, because you look gorgeous. So if you could also turn down or off your cell phones at this time, that will be really helpful for us so that we don't have ringing devices during the presentation. And at part of the presentation, Ron and Mary will be taking questions. So if you do get selected to share, if you wouldn't mind going at the end of the night, going back to the room, we have a release that we'll be giving you to just sign, acknowledging that you are on video. So without any further ado, we're going to begin our evening. Welcome to the University of Santa Monica. And it's really a pleasure tonight to have you all here. Tonight's event is entitled Learning How to Live a Soul-Centered Life, an Introduction to Spiritual Psychology. And you may know this, but USM is known as being the best in the world at one thing, and that is offering its programs in spiritual psychology. And we have several students and grads here who I know can attest to that. It is an extraordinary program. And tonight we're going to learn more. You're going to hear more about the Soul-Centered Living Program, which is a highly transformational 10-month certificate program in spiritual psychology. We're also going to explore the question of how can this program actually support you in living a life of greater meaning, of joy, a life that I can speak for myself is so far beyond what I imagined before I started this program many years ago. So USM is also known as the Worldwide Center for the Study and Practice of Spiritual Psychology. And that is no exaggeration. We are actually worldwide. Our students come from all over the country and the world. In fact, over the years, we've had students from Kenya, from many students from Canada, from Mexico, from Ecuador, from England, Japan, and recently we had students from Dubai as well as Kazakhstan, which inspired me to look on the map because I had to find out, where is Kazakhstan? Where are these people coming from? In fact, we also had a few years back, a father and daughter who flew in once a month from the north of Norway. Now, at the time, I didn't know this, but that is a 26-hour commute one way. So if any of you are thinking, ooh, can I bear sitting in the 405 traffic for an hour? You got to take that one off the plate, because people really do find this kind of value, and they will travel once a month from all over the world, because this is a very unique offering, and you'll learn much more about it tonight. So what does it really mean to live a soul-centered life? And how will that really support you in your dreams? That's the question we're going to explore tonight. And I can't think of two better people in this world that can answer that question. These two people have devoted quite literally their lives, 35 years, and have supported thousands of people around the world in answering these questions for themselves. Their names are Drs. Ron and Mary Hulnick. They are both pioneers and worldwide leaders in spiritual psychology. They are renowned educators, facilitators, and co-directors of the University of Santa Monica, where they have designed and developed and also facilitate the programs in spiritual psychology. And they have been doing this transformational education, really education of the heart and, quite frankly, of miracles for over 35 years. Both are licensed marriage and family therapists, and Dr. Mary Hulnick is a licensed clinical psychologist. And their book, published by Hay House, entitled Loyalty to Your Soul, The Heart of Spiritual Psychology, is currently in 8 languages and 12 countries worldwide. And just a couple of months ago, they published their most recent book, Remembering the Light Within, a course in soul-centered living, also published by Hay House, and we're delighted to have that. So on a personal note, I have been involved and worked very closely with Ron and Mary for close to 20 years now. And I can tell you that these two are masters at what they do. They are conscious, loving, deeply devoted, and two of the most caring people I've ever met. So please welcome to the stage Doctors Ron and Mary Hulnick, the President and Chief Creative Officer.
Thank you, Lucia. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I think Lucia said it all. There's nothing more for us to share this evening.
Well, welcome to all of you. We're just delighted that you're here, and to everybody online as well.
I saw Australia online, Montreal, a couple of other places, and a bunch of states. And, of course, John. We have to always mention John, who is a grad, and he lives in Thailand, and so he never misses one of these events. So we always have to say, hi, John. Well, ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So this evening, what we're going to do, let me always have to relearn how to work this thing. I think I'm going the wrong way.
There you go. That's better.
Okay. We only do this about once every month or two, and so, we forget. So let's start with USM's mission, and then we have an announcement for you. So USM's mission, which has been our mission for many, many, many years, is communicating the principles and practices of spiritual psychology worldwide through the process of soul-centered education. And we'll tell you what exactly we mean by spiritual psychology and what we mean by soul-centered education. Those are important things to talk about. So before we get into that, we want to make you aware that there has been I'll call it a transformational process that has really been in effect for over a year now. And by over a year now, I simply mean the way that time is presenting itself. There seem to be more and more and more people that are interested in this work that are coming forward more of the time. If for no other reason, this got really brought home to us, because in the past month or two, we've done 25 radio interviews all over the place, different countries, and every one of these radio interviews, there's somebody that's got a radio show with enough people listening to it to warrant the show, and this is all they want to talk about, is this kind of stuff. We're going to be doing a TV program in a couple of weeks, I guess, which will be aired 3 times. They've got a viewing audience of 8 million people. 8 million people. So with this going on in the world, and more people seemingly interested in this, we realized that what we have done is we've come to a transition place. We've come to a transition place. So the announcement that we have for you this evening is that this that we're going to talk about this evening is the last time that this program, that these two programs that we're offering next year, this is the last time that these programs will be offered in this form, that Mary and I will be facilitating them.
In other words, this is the last time that Ron and I are committed to leading them, to being there throughout the course of the 10 months. So this is the first year program that many of you are here to learn about, the program in soul-centered living. And this also applies to the Consciousness, Health, and Healing program, which is an advanced program that we offer as well. So it has been our great joy to do this, and we are looking forward to doing this one more time with love. And it's just so clear to us that it's important now to release ourselves from this form, which requires great discipline and devotion and being here weekend after weekend after weekend, so that we're available to Spirit to be used in other ways. So
we're using this evening as a way really to make this announcement to the entire USM community, because this information will travel rather rapidly. So I want to make it clear again, we're not saying that Mary made the statement where it's the last time we're committing to do, no, it's the last time we're going to be facilitating this program, period. I want to just make that really, really, really clear. So if you're one of the people who's been saying, gee, someday I think I'll take this when I have more time, or
now's the time.
Now is the time.
Now is the time. You know, there's Ram Dass had a great book called Be Here Now. And in that, he really emphasized the only time is now. So we're in the present.
So shall we talk about what this is all about? I mean, I assume that's what most of you are here for. I see some of you are here just to drink in the energy and to support the action, and that's all great. So we're going to start with something that we haven't usually talked about before, but how can I say this? I'm going to back up for a second. One of the things about doing this work is that this program that we've been developing and refining for 35 years is at a pretty good state now. But you know what? We keep learning new things too. And so we keep building them in. So just recently, we became aware that there's an opportunity to clarify some of the things that we do and the why we do it even more. So we're going to build some of that in tonight. So let's start. We have the mission statement, and now let's think about, or let's talk about, two ideas or two things that a lot of people are interested in: knowledge and education. Knowledge and education. And let's start with the common understandings of what those words mean. So if you were to look them up in the normal dictionary, you'd have knowledge is to know about, to know of. And that is the way that our educational system in this country is built. We get lots of courses and things so that we will know about them. So it's important to understand that. And education is a body of acquired knowledge. So we have a lot of very educated people that know a lot about things. And this is what our educational system is largely built upon. But if we dig a little bit deeper, and we have a 1936 Webster's Dictionary that we like to use for this purpose, because it tends to have more of the roots of words and where they come from. So the word knowledge really comes from the Latin word gnosis, which means to know experientially. That's different from knowing about. You can know about a country, but until you've been there, you don't know the country. You understand that distinction? So, in the same way, the word education has another meaning. It comes from the Latin educare, which means to draw out that which lies within. It has nothing to do with the implementation of knowledge. It has something to do with a process that assists people in drawing out from within something that lies deeply inside. So the reason we tell you this is because when we talk about soul-centered education, we were at a meeting with the Dalai Lama probably about 8, 9, 10 years ago at this point in time, and he made this well-known statement. My hope and wish is that one day formal education will pay attention to what I call education of the heart. He was not talking about knowledge about and acquiring a body of knowledge. He's talking about experientially learning how to draw out from within that which is inherent in human beings. We discussed this with him at the time, and he couldn't have been more supportive. In fact, it was very funny. There was a second talk that he gave to a group of politicians. This was in Calgary, Canada at the time, and he said to them, he said, you need to have more in politics about compassionate and self-forgiveness like they do at the University of Santa Monica. And I thought, thank you, Your Holiness. USM is education of the heart. USM is highly experiential. So what we're going to be talking about tonight, we will present you with some information because you have to have some sense of what it's about. But we implore you, as we're giving you this information, to also consider what would it be like if I knew this from my own experience, not as an idea, but from my own experiential validation. So, at USM, soul-centered education, which is the education of the heart, is all of these qualities. It's sacred. And we treat each other in a sacred way. That's how we learn about what sacredness means. It's highly experiential. Most of the time you spend in the classroom, you will be doing work with other people designed to bring these experiences forward for you. Relatively little time will we be like just giving you large lists of information and then you're supposed to, we don't have tests so you don't, it's just not what we're doing. Practical and relevant, these are things that you utilize in your life every day. In fact, you have to in order to keep developing it, keep, what shall I say?
And I would say it's not that you have to, you'll want to. Once you begin experiencing the principles and practices of spiritual psychology in the classroom and you discover the value of them, people easily integrate them and begin using them both in their personal and professional lives.
It's supportive. Students support each other. In fact, they consider it part of their, I don't want to say obligation, I'll call it opportunity. Wow, I get a chance to be of service to other people in the class. Absolutely. Deeply healing and transformation. We mean deeply healing in a psychological sense. We heal things that disturb our peace, and we'll talk more about that later. To the degree that we do that, our life changes. It's automatic. You can't help it. So how do we know that? 36 years of seeing it happen. Loving excellence. We do everything because we care. And students participate with that kind of a consciousness. You want to do things excellently because you want to live an excellent life. So you practice doing it that way. Alive and dynamic, I love that one. What can I say? It is alive and dynamic. How many people here are either in the program or graduates? So if you want to know what we mean by that, talk to these people, because they know from experience.
You know, what I would say about it is that it's real, because the conversation that goes on in the USM classroom is real. It's about what people are experiencing in their lives. It's about their heartfelt dreams. It's about the challenges that we all encounter in our human experience and how we can resolve and dissolve those challenges. So it's very alive and dynamic. It is joyful and fun. There is humor in the USM classroom. And this is
That's next.
I know. I'm going on.
Okay.
I'm helping with this talk.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the humor part, it's because it's alive and dynamic and real, there's just spontaneous humor that is expressed. And because we all share so much in common in our human experience, we all recognize some of the things that people share as so resonant with our own experience. And sometimes it's very, very funny.
I love one of the quotes of our founder and chancellor, first chancellor, John Roger. He said, it's going to be funny 6 months from now. It may as well be funny now. And there's a lot of wisdom in that. So in addition to being the CEO, I'm also the CFO, which is the Chief Fun Officer. And obviously Mary is challenging me in that role. But I mean, whoever said this stuff has to be serious? And I mean, we can have fun doing it, and we do. It's very creative in the sense that you come to places inside that you didn't know you had access to before. So you start having different kinds of experiences. You have different possibilities in your life. Creative. And oh my God, is it inspirational? Inspirational. You start to really come into, what shall I say, a more inspired awareness of your own self. And we'll talk more about that as we go forward. So, moving on. Spiritual psychology. So what is it, and what difference does it make anyway? Well, I think we've covered some of the differences, but we're going to get into a little bit more about what it is. So if you were to go into a dictionary, and here we go with the meaning of words again, and you were to look up the word psychology, you'll find something like the science of mind and behavior. The science of mind and behavior. And when you think of psychology, you think of, it's physician-oriented in the way of therapists, and it's very much patterned on the medical model. But if you were to go into that same dictionary and look up the word psyche, because you think psychology derives from psyche. What does the word psyche mean? Much to your surprise, what you'll find is breath, principle of life, soul. Wait a minute, what happened? So when we talk about spiritual psychology, we use that name to signify we're really bringing it back to what it was inspired in the first place onto the planet. My very first teacher's father was actually a student of Freud's. And she would tell me that psychology was originally inspired onto the planet because humanity had forgotten why it was here. And that's a very, very potent idea about what we do in these classes. We remember why we are here. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And so, spiritual psychology recognizes that there is such a thing as a spiritual reality. that is independent from physical world reality. Or, I don't mean independent like they operate independently, but at the same time together, just different perspectives. And it begins with the principle, because a lot of people talk, well, we're human beings, and one dimension is we have this spiritual dimension, we have these souls, or this dimension. And rather than that, rather than humans with souls, and this was put forward by Teilhard de Chardin a bunch of years ago, he said we're souls having a human experience. And we've changed that slightly to we're souls using a human experience. We're souls using a human experience. And for what purpose are we using this human experience? What is the soul seeking to do or learn from being here? The experience that we're all having is going through the process that is known as awakening. Awakening. Becoming more conscious of our true nature. This is the big shift that's happening on this planet right now. We are in the midst of some significant upward movement in that direction. For those of you who know anything about spiritual history, any of that kind of stuff, we are in a time that has been talked about for many, many, many thousands of years. We're in that time right now. We're completing what's known as a yuga in the Eastern tradition, which is a 25,000-year cycle. We're starting the next one. So the next one gets started at a higher level than the one we're coming out of. And that's what we're all in the business of doing here. And this is why our mission has to do with the principles and practices of spiritual psychology worldwide. And again, I'll show you what that looks like a little bit more. So we define spiritual psychology as the study and practice of conscious awakening. Conscious awakening. And what does awakening mean? Well, we'll see if we can do our best to share with you the best way we have found over the years to give you some knowledge about this process. So, we like to draw this line, which we refer to as physical world reality. It's just a way to represent it. And you'll notice there's a minus and a plus. So it has it gives you the feeling that everyone is looking to move from the minus into the plus. We're looking to have a better life. We're looking to have better relationships. We're looking to earn more money. You get the idea. And this is the way most of the world functions, achieving of goals. So we refer to this as the goal line of life. Just a way to describe it. The vast number of people on this planet, this is their reality. This is their reality. Nothing wrong about this, it's just the way it is. Now, here's the thing. While this is going on, there is a whole other reality going on that every now and then we have a sense of. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. How many people have ever come in contact with a newborn baby? Okay.
We all
Most of
were
you.
one.
Okay.
We all were one.
I know, but we didn't know it at that time.
No.
So, did you have that feeling of, oh my God, that is not on the goal line. That experience did not take place on the goal line. That experience took place on what we refer to as the spiritual context, and we call it the soul line. It's an inherent experience that transcends goals. It doesn't have anything to do with that. The interesting thing is that every major religion has talked about this. It's what the religions are all actually built upon. Where you get to, if you take that line on up, you get to a consciousness called love. Imagine if you lived in the state that you were in when you saw that baby? What if every minute of every day was like that? If you can conceive of that, you start to get a sense of the dimension that we're talking about here. So, here's where it gets interesting. I mentioned a minute ago that there's a shift going on the planet right now. So the shift is both upward and to the right at the same time. The quality of people's lives in physical world reality is improving. I mean, it's funny, I was watching a commercial just the other night where they were showing the advent of dishwashers. You know, what the first dishwashers were like about 60 or 70 years ago and where they've come to now. So in that sense, we have things now that we didn't have then. I mean, we don't ride around on horses anymore. We have automobiles. And it's continuing to go that way and will continue to go that way.
And pretty soon we'll have flying automobiles.
Flying automobiles? Yeah. Who will be flying them?
Not me.
No one. They'll be flying themselves. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Anyway, so the physical world reality is continually shifting toward the positive. In the same way, despite what we might think, humanity is evolving upward on the soul line. It looks something like this, where we have gains on the goal line and spiritual awakening. While we may not think about it that way, we are more conscious today as a species than we ever have been before. If you look at the world from a per capita perspective, there has never been the degree of peace on this planet that there is now than there ever has been before. Per capita, when you look at it per capita. So we don't tend to think of it that way because the news doesn't portray it that way. So the question becomes, well, where is someone, I mean, we know where we're going to go to get the education that is going to assist us in moving on the goal line. We have all these computer programs and all these programs that do this and programs that do that. But where do you go to get the education on the soul line? It's a very, very, very good question. If you're going to have education on the soul line, it has to be education that uplifts everyone, not just certain groups. It has to be available for everyone. Spiritual psychology has that. It's the essence of it. And maybe we'll get to more about that. Let's see. So people who are thinking this way are generally asking themselves three essential questions. Who am I? What is my purpose? And how can I make a more meaningful contribution and live a more fulfilling life? There are people who are saying there's got to be more to life than just what I'm seeing out there in my next paycheck. There has to be more to life. Our answer is there is. There is, but you have to know how to approach it, because you can't approach it in this goal line orientation. But people keep trying. 5 steps to instant enlightenment. And then next month it's down to 3. And then we have the secret. You learn the secret, and here's 100 secrets. But they don't tell you secrets like, no matter what you create, you're going to have to maintain it. You want to have that private plane, you're going to have to maintain it. They don't tell you that after you're done creating everything, you're not going to be any happier than before you started. Because that's not the dimension upon which happiness truly resides. Things of that nature. They don't tell you things like, after you're all done creating, because of your spiritual curriculum, you may be asked to give up everything you just created in order to take your next step up. We don't hear things like that. We don't hear things like, you're not going to be able to create beyond what you're here on this planet to experience. So we're talking about a whole different way of life, and it's very important that we understand that. So, what's involved in awakening? I'm glad you asked that question. What's involved in awakening? It's a really good question. Well, Jalaluddin Rumi, who is one of our favorite Persian mystical poets, he put it this way. He was very onto it. He said, your task is not to seek for love. Your task is not to seek outwardly for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. It's an inside job. And then to that we add, and this is the whole point of spiritual psychology, we add to this quote, and to dissolve them. You learn how to dissolve those barriers, and you have the experience of dissolving those barriers. And I can't imagine anybody going through USM and not have that experience. You have that experience. The instant you dissolve a barrier, you will realize a higher level of that experience of being with that little baby. Because there is nothing preventing you from having it all the time. It's your natural state. But we have these barriers in the way. USM is all about removing those barriers. It's like taking the sunglasses off and you stand in the essence of your essential nature. Is there really a program that does this? Yes, there really is. So let's talk about, I'll give you a little more of a sense of what's involved. So to really grasp what we're talking about, you have to know a little bit about consciousness itself. What does our consciousness really look like so we get a sense of where this work is? So we're all aware of the physical world. That's the goal line, physical world reality. But as we go inside, the first thing we're aware of is this thing called the mind, the mental realm. And there's tons of programs out there now, and mindfulness this and mindfulness that, and it's all good stuff, but it's limited to the mind. If you go deeper inside, there's a whole emotional body, how we feel about things, harder to get hold of. You can change your thoughts, but try changing your emotions on a moment's notice like you can change your mind. It doesn't work that way. These levels taken together, the mental and the emotional, are what is referred to by psychologists as the ego. So if you're egotistically living your life, which most of us are, then you're very concerned with what's going on in your mind and your emotions. And when you get things you think you want, you feel good about that. So let's take it to another level. We have this thing called the unconscious. We want to make it clear, we are not big proponents of going fishing around in the unconscious, because what we have found over the years is material is in the unconscious for a darn good reason. We're not ready to deal with it yet. And so we don't go digging there. We're very clear that when you're ready for something to come to the surface, you don't have to worry about it. It will come up. It will come up. All of these levels have what we call polarity. Everything in the ego has polarity. So there are what we call negative experiences, and there are positive experiences. Determined by what? By you. You get to decide in your life what's positive and what's negative. So the way that this works is that when we work through all these levels and we start to get free of these patterns, we find that there is another level beneath it all called the authentic self. The main characteristic of the authentic self, you will notice, there is no polarity. There's no polarity. Well, what is there? Unconditional love. And its derivatives, little things like peace, acceptance, compassion, beauty, joy, freedom, gratitude, humor, happiness, nothing important. So what are we saying? Are they really saying that if you learn to access the authentic self, which is inside of you, this is what your life looks like? That's exactly what we're saying. Spiritual psychology is how you get into those experiences. Now again, remember, we're not talking about knowing about. We're talking about having the experience of. This is available to everybody. It's our inherent nature. All right, how does this work? Well, let's say that you're in the class and you've committed to writing a book. And we say, well, how many pages will you write between now and next month? You go, I'll write 30 pages. Okay. So you go ahead and you write the 30 pages. Can you see that what you've done is you've transformed 30 pages worth of energy that used to be positive, that used to be negative, it's now positive. Can you see that? See, by writing the 30 pages. But now you have presented yourself with an interesting dilemma. Because all of the mental, emotional, and some of the unconscious material that is associated with why you didn't write the 30 pages in the first place is going to come bubbling up to the surface for you to deal with. Most people stop at that point. And this is why we don't accomplish more things than we say we would like to accomplish. Because we don't know how to deal with the material that comes up. There will be mental material that comes up, there will be emotional feelings that come up, and to some degree a certain amount of unconscious material that comes up. Just comes up. Meditating isn't going to deal with that, not all by itself. It needs something that's more active, that will work on all of the levels. This is what spiritual psychology teaches us. It teaches us a system or a method or however you want to call it, of how to do the work so that what happens is we clear all those other levels and our whole entire system has shifted into more positive energy, less negative energy. I mean, I hope you hear what I'm saying here. You learn how to do this, your entire life will change. You won't be able to stop it. Not that you'd want to. I mean, I never met anybody who went into therapy because life was so good they couldn't stand it. I mean, it just does not work that way. So let's talk about, well, what are those barriers? What is that stuff? What are those X's that you talked about? So what are the barriers? Here is the biggest barrier. Not that any of you ever do this, just saying, the biggest barrier is we go, I am upset because. I am upset because. And the because always has an outer reference. I'm upset because someone did this. I'm upset because my wife, my husband behaved this way.
My boss.
My bosses are really good. If you're a boss, you know that you're the butt of a lot of people's upset. I'm upset because. So we actually did a survey one time to get out what are people's becauses. And here was what we found were some common upsets. I'm upset because the biggest one, you don't listen to me. Whoever the you is in your life, my husband, my wife, my children, my parents. I'm upset because you don't listen to me. And after that one came...
Well, there was a great thing that happened in class with the you don't listen to me.
Oh, right. I got it. Thank you. This woman stands up and she says, why don't you tell it?
She said, my boyfriend tells me I don't listen to him. Then she said, that is so hard to hear.
Thank you, Mary. I forgot that.
Yeah.
So, people don't understand me. There's a book somewhere that says everybody should understand you. And when people don't understand you, they're obviously idiots. And we all know that. I'm upset because life is unfair. Life should be fair. And there are people in politics who are trying to make that an agenda, that everything is fair for everybody, as if that were possible. Life should be fair. I'm upset because I'm working too hard. That's a big one these days. People really are working very hard, a lot of hours. I'm upset because we're upset ourselves because I'm not behaving like I feel I should behave. And if all else fails and you need one, you can always go to this one. I'm upset because traffic is terrible. You get the sense of. So the important thing to understand is that can we separate out the part inside that's upset from the perceived reason why? Or is our ego just need a reason to justify it being upset because it doesn't like to see itself that way? Is that possible? So that's what we're going to be taking a look at. What's the alternative? Is there an alternative? If so, what is it? What if it were possible? Because if you run this, where are you going to seek to make a difference? You're going to try to change this down here. Anybody ever successful at that? I've never met anybody who really was successful at doing that. And so we just keep nurturing these disturbances and blaming it on someone else. What if it were possible? Maybe. What if it were possible to somehow go inside and identify the place inside where we're having the experience of being upset, where we're experiencing upset. It's going on somewhere inside. It's not out there. The reason is out there, we think, but the upset itself is going on inside. What if we could identify and connect up with the place inside that is having the experience of upset and heal it? And heal it. Well, what would happen then when that thing outside happens? I would simply deal with it. In fact, I'd be much better at dealing with it because I wouldn't be coming at it from a disturbed place inside. I'd be coming at it from a clear place. And when that happens, your experience shifts from I am upset because into something that looks more like this. You remove one of those lenses, you remove the clouds from your vision, and this is what you experience. You experience your essential nature as a loving being. That's what this program does for people. I shouldn't say that. This program provides the opportunity for people to learn how to use this technology and have that experience. And then the more that we use it, it starts to become habitual. It takes time, I grant you that. It takes time. But once you're onto it, you either have, you really have just two choices. You can go, wow, this is, I can't handle this. And you simply go back to where you started from. You keep blaming other things for your upset. Or you persevere. You persevere. So that is the choice that you have. And so this is why we say, how do you do this and what's involved? All because anything, and I mean anything, that disturbs your peace, that upsets you, are in reality triggers to unresolved issues, seeking resolution, and part of your spiritual curriculum. We are actually saying that the things that are disturbing your peace are really not bad things that are happening to you, but opportunities to pass that course and step more fully into the awareness of your essential nature as a loving being. So this is the picture of our best picture of what the thing looks like. We resolve those issues. We step forward more into the awareness of what and who it is we truly are. And we say that healing is the application of loving to the places inside that hurt or are suffering. That when you complete one of those, or you let go of one of those, they turn out to be judgments. What simply happens is all of a sudden you experience yourself shifting. And that's a healing action. And what we have found over the years, it's a kind of a forgiveness action. Not forgiveness in the sense of, oh, they did that, I'll just overlook it and make it okay. That's not the kind of forgiveness we're talking about. We're talking about true forgiveness, which means, am I willing to let go of making anyone wrong for anything? That's an enlightened being. I assure you, the Dalai Lama makes nobody wrong about anything. Can you have that level of awareness? Not only can you have it, you will have it sooner or later. It's really just a question of time. And in spiritual psychology, time is measured in lifetimes. But since there really is no such thing as time, it's always now. It's never a week ago or a week from now, it's always now. Now is the only time that you ever have to work on this stuff. Because now is the only time that there is. You might be interested in knowing that in physics they've now proven that. So interesting to me is we can prove that. Okay, that's good. All right, so we'll show you this again. What we're going for is from here to here, so we can be effective on both levels. Yeah, we want to help the world move and evolve. At the same time, the world is not going to evolve by unevolved people. I mean, it doesn't work that way. So we want to do both. So I would present to you the question, where does somebody go to get education on both lines? I only know of one place, you're sitting in it. Doesn't mean other places don't exist or other systems. I just know this one experientially, and I know what it can do. So what happens when I don't click the thing, right? Lisa, it's that slide again.
We went by a
Wow.
few, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
We went by.
Okay, let me...
It needs to go back
Oh,
further.
God, I think we went... Did I go back to the beginning? No.
No, you just need to keep going backwards. Here we are.
Yeah, okay. Whew. I mean, it's funny, every time we do this, we seem to come to that same place. We'll have to fix that one. Here's how we start out. You're to a greater or lesser degree in this position right now. We're run by our egos. We were brought up that way. This is the way the planet works. But almost everybody has a place inside. It's been called a still small voice within. Every now and then you get a glimpse of something that is deeper, is more expanded. And when you start to do the work, really start to do the work, what starts to happen is that the voice of the authentic self starts to get louder. And to the degree it gets louder, the voice of the ego gets smaller. And so you keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going, and you get to a place eventually where your authentic self is now running your life. And it does it through the ego. We have to have an ego. You understand that? Otherwise, we could not exist in this dualistic reality. You have to have a part inside that does things in this world. Soul doesn't know how to do that. But it does it through an ego. So all the people who are trying to dissolve their or destroy their, no, you don't want to do that. Unless you want to really sit in a cave and just meditate all day long. I figured out that wasn't for me because I knew that my cave, I would have to have a Starbucks nearby. So that disqualified the whole, the whole process. All right, so let's see. What kind of educational curriculum is required to support students in their conscious awakening and living into a more fulfilling life? So you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yes, so the program that we are offering is a 10-month certificate program in soul-centered living. And the question comes forward for people, what is soul-centered living?
And spiritual psychology. You didn't say 10-month program in spiritual psychology.
A 10-month program in spiritual psychology.
Yeah.
Thank you. Or not. So, what is soul-centered living? The essence of soul-centered living is really waking up into the awareness of who you truly are and then living your life from that awakened state. So what does it mean to wake up into who you truly are? Your essential nature is loving, it is creative, it is joyful and wise, it is amazing. And as Ron spoke about in the earlier part of the talk, it's like we have these barriers that really block us from the awareness of that. And as we learn the principles and practices of spiritual psychology, we can dissolve those barriers and experience the authentic self, to live our lives more in that state of consciousness as a way of being and as a way of life.
So you want to discuss some of the hallmarks?
Sure. So some of the hallmarks of soul-centered living, one of the guidelines or ground rules that we have as part of the program is use everything for your growth, learning, and upliftment. And so part of soul-centered living is how do we learn to utilize all of life's experiences in service to waking up. And we have so many different approaches and tools, very practical and very doable, that students learn to use. So these are practical tools that you learn to use in the classroom and in your everyday life. To embrace that your essential nature truly is loving and that you can live your life in that state of consciousness more and more and more of the time. That just changes everything. Free yourself from mental anguish and emotional suffering, those barriers that we talked about, the judgments, the misunderstandings, misbeliefs, misidentifications that we hold become part of a perceptual filter through which we interpret experience and life. And very often we are interpreting in ways that create a great deal of unhappiness and a painful kind of emotional anguish and separation inside. Ron mentioned one of the principles is healing is the application of loving to the parts inside that hurt. And you learn how to do that in the classroom, how to bring forward the compassion that is part of your essential nature and bring that compassion to the parts inside where you're experiencing emotional pain. This is a beautiful one. Translate your life's purpose into meaningful and achievable goals. So many people are yearning for a greater knowing of their purpose, for a greater sense of meaning and fulfillment in their lives. And this is so integral to the curriculum, the work of assisting people to connect inside with the wisdom of their heart, with those things that call to them, that they are gifted in, and that bring them great joy and fulfillment. experience of freedom that comes from accepting 100% responsibility for your life. And that really includes accepting responsibility for what's going on inside of you and accepting responsibility for the choices and direction of your life.
Not easy. Oh,
well, and that can seem kind of scary at times. But at the same time, my own experience is the more I become anchored in my authentic self, in the knowing that I am a divine being having a human experience, that I'm a soul here on the planet for my own healing, for my growth, and also to share the gifts that I have, I am much more confident in my ability to access Spirit's guidance and to take responsibility for myself inside and out.
And you can either take responsibility or you can go the other way. And if you go the other way and do I'm upset because, if you think about it, you are a complete and total victim in that situation. Somebody else is controlling your life. Because when they do that thing, you have this emotional response that you have. So the more that you learn to take responsibility and how to work with that, it's amazing that people can do the very same things and you sit there and you go, that's very interesting.
In the early years of this work, someone gave us a cartoon, and the cartoon showed someone in a prison cell, and they were holding very tightly onto two bars. But when you looked at the full image, over here, there were no bars.
And all the
Yeah, and all the person needed to do was just walk over here, and they would be free. And from my point of view, learning to use the principles and practices of spiritual psychology is like that. It opens the prison door and you get free. And live in joy and happiness here and now. Joy is the quality of the soul, as is love. And as you dissolve and resolve these issues and these misunderstandings, it's like you come alive in the joy and you live just a much more joyful and fulfilling life. So we're going to briefly talk about the major elements of the program. This program is very dimensional. It's very, very rich, but I'm going to touch on the highlights. We work with 32 soul-centered basic skills, and Lisa is always saying to me, Mary, you should change the name of these. These are not basic skills, but yet we consider them basic for living a soul-centered life, for living a more spiritual life on the planet. And we learn these experientially in the classroom through small group processes of 3 people. Not only are these skills helpful in terms of your relationship with yourself, healing unresolved material within your own consciousness, but they will also assist you interpersonally in having more fulfilling and deeper relationships with others, both personally and in your work life. Also, we have 33 principles of spiritual psychology, and these are not theoretical. I want to make that very, very clear. These principles are grounded in the experience that we have had working with this material. So they become a framework or a context that allows you to navigate life in a way that is just much more fulfilling. I think I said that one. We said that one.
Once more?
Okay.
That.
So in the 5-line model, you saw the physical level, the mental and emotional levels, the unconscious level, and the authentic self level. And we have tools for working at each one of those levels. So the students gain facility in an understanding and awareness of what those levels are and how to work within them in service to greater healing and freedom.
So you understand, part of what goes on in the class, in a way it's somewhat frustrating to present this, but It's one thing to learn about the practices of effectively working. It's another thing to be sitting in the classroom and have the experience. That is when the knowing in that gnosis sense really comes in. Then, of course, you have a real challenge because you want to go and tell everybody about it, and they look at you like you're a very strange person. Next.
Okay. Ways of caring for yourself as a divine being, having a human experience. You know, where do you really learn how to care for yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and in some cases physically? And so a major thread that runs through the entire program is self-nurturing. And we have very specific practices that we encourage, and we encourage the students in creating their own. And the last one, this is a beautiful part of being in the USM classroom. We really are an educational community because this is real and people talk about things that are real and that matter to them. We really get to know each other. And because we're also learning how to show up as a divine being, as a loving being, and to utilize these skills in service not only to ourselves but to our classmates, the class becomes a very supportive community of like-hearted people. And there's something wonderful about getting together once a month, meeting and greeting each other again. The classes always have a Facebook group, so they're in communication with each other to the degree that they wish to be in between classes. And we have a couple of people who are going to talk about their experience of the program and what they got out of it. Maybe one of them will talk about that.
So who is this program for? Well, I mean, if any of what we've shared here resonates inside of you, wow, that would be interesting. That makes sense to me. It's for you.
You know, and I think it's often for people who just have a sense that there's something more going on here on the planet. And they want to know, or maybe they've had a spiritual experience. They've had some kind of awakening, and they're looking for more of that. Or maybe their life experience has been such that they feel they have a lot of unresolved material. They had a very difficult early part of their life, a lot of challenges, and so they're looking for deep healing. This program is one, and it's always interesting to talk about this. It's like anybody who feels a resonance with it could find value in it. And part of why I say that, we get people who've been on a spiritual path for many years who come and take the program. And we get people who are really beginning their own spiritual awakening who come and take the program. The beautiful thing about this work is that it meets people where they are. So if you're well experienced, the program will meet you there. If you're new, it will give you an incredible foundation and will really help accelerate your awakening.
It'll also assist you if you're one of these people who somehow believes that you're a product of your childhood and there's nothing you can do about that. Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
It will help you experientially discover that your history does not define who you are and is not a self-fulfilling prophecy about the quality of life that you need to live. All right,
And
so then,
more.
what is a class weekend like? Class weekends are amazing. They're really a highlight of the month for us. I think they're a highlight for the students. First and foremost, the classroom is an experience in love and support. It's an incredibly healing environment. We do a lot of these processes in trios, three-person processes. We have sharing. People talk about their experiences. They talk about their challenges. They talk about their aspirations and dreams. And we all move through the process together. It's extremely uplifting.
I agree.
Great.
All right, so...
So we can sum it up here, Ron.
Okay.
You know, so many people are seeking a transformed world. And why shouldn't we have that? But it can really only emerge by doing the inner work necessary to transform your own consciousness, to transform your inner world. The world really is a reflection of your own consciousness. Your world is. And so if you want to be having a different experience, the place to start is inside. And this program is designed in a very systematic way that is incredibly loving, supportive, and assistful in helping people make that transformation.
So, what are we doing next tonight? Are we...
I think we're having, Dan and
Lisa?
Carolyn, you're next, right? Yeah. So we've invited one current student from Soul-Centered Living who's here this evening to share, and a graduate who's been out of the program for many years to talk about her experience with USM. I don't know if you guys have decided who's going first. All right, Dan, wonderful.
I'm Dan Wilner. As Ron and Mary mentioned, I am a current student in Soul-Centered Living. We have completed 8 months of the program, so almost at the end. When I came to USM, I'd already done quite a lot of work on myself. I'd done many years of psychotherapy, probably helped my shrink pay for a summer home. I had worked with a coach who was a graduate of this school. I'd started engaging just a tiny little bit with Zen Buddhism and Zen meditation, and all of these things had been very helpful and supportive to me in a lot of different ways. But I still was finding a lot of stuckness in my life. I am a filmmaker, an artist, a theater director, a writer, and despite all the work that I had done on myself to heal a lot of things, I still woke up every morning with this sort of pit of fear in my stomach and felt like, showing up in front of that blank page was like, I was going to be going to war every day with that fear. And many, many days I felt like I was losing that war. And it was a bad feeling, and it was frustrating, and it was painful. It was exasperating to feel like I had done so much work, and yet still there was this feeling of, why was I not more able to stand in the fullness of myself, to take risks, to move in the direction that I so wanted to move in, and that I felt like was the purpose of my life? And so when I came to USM, I had a very clear, I had the benefit of having a lot of clarity around that issue, and the benefit of having done a lot of healing work in other modalities. And I came with a fairly clear intention to work on this issue. And through the weekends, the trio processes, work with Mary outside of class, work on my own, and just working the process, I came to, I think, a deeper awareness of how this all worked for me. And without going too deeply into the details, if I were to really summarize what it was that I came to understand, I really came to an awareness that I had been living my life under the illusion that if I was true to myself, that if I honored the inspiration and expression of my soul, then somehow in my consciousness that was paired with the idea, going back many years, that I would be a failure, that I would hurt people, that I might get hurt. And so in the light of that deeper awareness, it became very understandable that I wouldn't want to write or make the film or make more stuff and put myself out there. And I came to have a much deeper compassion for myself in the experience of struggle that I had. And the other awareness and intention that I came to was, this was a story that may have served me in the past in some other way, perhaps in my childhood for whatever reasons, but it became very clear that that story was no longer serving me, that this was an illusion that I was living in the grips of, and that it was no longer supporting me in living the life I wanted to. And so by really embracing the tools of this program, I really started to lift and heal this pattern in my consciousness, to just drop it, to just drop the rock, to just let it go. And that happened in a lot of different ways. I think compassionate self-forgiveness and really learning what that truly meant and how to work that was probably the most powerful, but there were a bunch of other tools, both in and out of the classroom, that I was able to learn and really utilize. And over a period of many months, was able to really start dissolving this. And as a result, was able to take more creative risk in my life. So as I started going through the program, I decided to direct and produce a play, which was something that I hadn't done for years. That was a really beautiful experience. I felt so much more connected to my own creativity, to my own joy, and just the fun of making things with other people. I found that I was able to be really supportive and loving to the other artists that I was working with, using some of the tools from this program in my relationships with them, creatively and otherwise. And I think on a creative level, it was a beautiful and very successful project with great reviews that I was very happy about. But more than that, and much more gratifying, was just a deeper awareness of who and what I am, and just a greater freedom to just share all of that with the world, and to really stand forth fully in my giftedness, in my joy, in my loving, and to really share that with the world, and really come to believe experientially, as Ron was saying, that could never be harmful to anybody, whether outside myself or to myself. And so if there's any shift that this program really helped me to make succinctly, it would be really having moved from a place of fear to one of freedom, from a place of judgment to a place of aliveness, of authentic empowerment, of authentic self-expression. And I really credit this program and its tools and the way that it is structured so thoughtfully and with so much love, and my ability to embrace those tools with that transformation. And with this news tonight that we've learned that Ron and Mary will be facilitating just one more year, I really can't encourage you strongly enough to take advantage of that, because I believe, not to embarrass you, Ron and Mary, but really a great benefit that I experienced have been experiencing as I am going through and completing the program, has been just learning from Ron and Mary as they conduct the program. The example that they set, the model, the way they truly embody these principles and practices in the way that they conduct this program, and how loving they are, in the mastery that they have. I have learned a great deal. Even when Ron and Mary are facilitating for somebody else, there's often times when I'm then working with myself on my own in between class weekends, when I'm sort of modeling my own behavior and relating to myself with the way that I've learned from them and how they relate to and work with and facilitate for others. So I think this is really a very exciting opportunity. And so if you really have any inkling that this might be for you, I can't encourage you strongly enough to just take the plunge, because it will serve you. And I can't tell you how much more fun I'm having in life now. It's just a lot better waking up in the morning not feeling like you're going to war with yourself. So take the plunge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn Freyer-Jones. I'm the grad who's been out of the program for a number of years. So they made me come back. So they were like, you really need this tonight. To be very specific, I completed the spiritual psychology program 19 years ago.
Wow.
It's crazy, right? It's crazy. And then I did the Consciousness Health and Healing program in 2000, and I have been thinking about coming tonight. I haven't shared about that in a long time, and I was thinking, I've been living into the principles and practices of spiritual psychology for 19 years. And they're still so rich. My life and my inner life has just changed so radically from the moment I walked in these doors. And I am so grateful because the principles and practices of spiritual psychology have changed my inner life. They have changed my professional life. I came into the program, I was seeking, I had no idea what I was seeking. I had no language for anything spiritual. I was profoundly uncomfortable with purple and candles and happiness. And, for me, the greatest thing was that Ron and Mary looked, in my mind, like normal people, because if there had been flowing skirts, I would have left the building quite quickly. And I'm so grateful that I didn't, because my whole life, my professional life, is really rooted in the principles and practices of spiritual psychology. I'm a professional life and business coach and have been doing that work for close to 15 years. I am married to a University of Santa Monica graduate who had no intention of coming here, and it has changed his life radically. We have a 9-year-old daughter who is being raised really with the principles and practices of spiritual psychology, much to her chagrin, who has said to me, Mom, I'm enough with the spiritual pep talks. Those direct quote. So, and that's okay, because she's going to keep getting them whether she wants them or not. And what I want to talk about are really the value of the principles and practices of spiritual psychology, first as a professional coach, because the field of professional coaching is, as everyone knows, booming, right? Everywhere you look, somebody is a coach and somebody is doing this. And from my point of view, that's fantastic news. I wouldn't want it any other way. I love this profession. From my point of view, let it continue to grow. What I want to talk about is how, as a University of Santa Monica graduate, the difference that I can make with the principles and practices of spiritual psychology. Because coaching is an important profession from my point of view. It helps transform people's lives. It helps them move forward on the goal line, which in many regards is the bulk of professional coaching, right? It's helping people have more of what they want in their lives. And that's great, and that's valuable. And I'm grateful when I get to help someone do that. And another whole component of professional coaching that University of Santa Monica graduates bring to the table is the opportunity to work with people on the soul line, on the areas of their inner lives that are not fulfilling them, how they're experiencing life day to day. And that's an arena that my USM education is an incredible game changer, because Drs. Ron and Mary Hulnick talked about this a long time ago. You cannot take people into territory that you have never gone. You just can't. But I can, because I've gone through the inner work. I know how to assist someone in healing things that are in the way, that are keeping them from creating what they want in their lives. And that's not something that every professional coach can say, nor can they do. There are people who can do it to a certain extent. Every single person I know that comes to me, both to work with me or to work with coaches that I coach who are University of Santa Monica graduates, or I hear about them, they're able to do a level of depth in the work that they do with people that is different. And I coach non-USM coaches. I meet a lot of coaches in my life, and it's different. And the ways that a University of Santa Monica graduate can work with someone in their lives is really remarkable. And we have a soul-centered professional coaching program at the university. And one of the faculty members is a gentleman that some people have heard of. His name is Steve Chandler, who's a very well-known coach and speaker and author. He is not a University of Santa Monica grad, although he's an honorary one. And he goes around the world speaking and training coaches. And he will say to any person considering the program or in the program, University of Santa Monica graduates can make the most unique and profound difference in the field of professional coaching. You can change lives in ways that other coaches cannot, by virtue of the depth of work and the depth of your training. Most coaching training is not anywhere near the length of time or the depth that the university offers. So it's like I've walked through my own crucible of fire, sitting in seats, doing profoundly deep work, and that's helpful in my profession. The other thing that's incredibly helpful are the tools and skills that you learn here. I'm able to listen to someone in a way that is remarkably different than how most people listen. I mean, that listening is with me in all areas of my life. But to be able to listen to someone from my heart and be with them and assist them in coming into greater compassion for themselves. And I want to say this because this is important, because many people think, well, I don't want to be a spiritual coach. And you don't have to be. I have clients who the word spiritual never comes up with, ever. I'm not here to tell someone they need to become more spiritual in their lives as a professional coach. If someone wants that, I can assist them with that. But it's not a requirement. What it does mean is I can be coming from that place inside of me. I am coming from that place of looking at them as a divine being, having a human experience with their own curriculum, and we never have to talk about it. It doesn't ever have to come up. But I'm able to be in that place inside of me, in the authentic self place. That in and of itself changes the nature of the work that we do, even if we never talk about it. And I am so grateful for that because I get to do fantastic work in the world. I love my job. It's, to me, the best thing I get to do every single day. I have fun, I get to help people transform their lives, and I get to do it over and over and over again. And it's always fun and new and different because I have these tools and skills. Teaching someone the tool of compassionate self-forgiveness does not get old. It does not get old when someone realizes they've been walking around in the world in an illusion, in the world of judging themselves and living a life of pain and suffering. Having someone and assisting them in lifting that, it doesn't get any better than that. That's why Drs. Ron and Mary Hulnick have been doing it for 35 plus years. And they're the best at it. Like, let me be clear. I can do a good job. If you're considering the program, they can do a great job. They're way more seasoned at this. And in terms of my personal life, I'm going to share one story. So I came to USM never thinking that I would ever have to deal with things like my best friend dying. And she did. She was a grad. This program made that journey possible for me. I was able to be there with her. I was able to support her. I was able to serve her in that process in a way that when I met Ron and Mary, I probably would have ran the other way. It would have been so frightening to me. And it wasn't. It wasn't frightening. It was hard. It was challenging. It was painful. But I was able to do it, and I was able to be there with her. And truthfully, I was able to use that entire experience for my learning and growth. And I still am. So it's a curriculum that really, when Mary says it can serve you in every arena of your life, it really can. Because no one's going to get out of this without facing someone they love dying, right? If you've already been through that, you already know. But if you haven't been through that, to have these tools and skills to walk through that experience, to not shy away from the painful stuff, from being with someone when they're scared and when they're alone and when they're frightened of what's coming, those are things that are priceless. So I'm just really here to say this is a curriculum that is, I've been living into it for 19 years. I see myself obviously continuing to deepen into that, and you might as well do it now because it's like we all, we're talking about this possibility. And to be in a classroom with Ron and Mary is really a game changer because they're extraordinary teachers in every sense of the word, but they really are two people that have dedicated their lives to teaching people these tools and skills in a way that you can walk. There are grads who walk out of the room and they may never see Ron and Mary again, but if I run into them, it's all inside of them. They're living it. They're using it. So I just want to say thank you. I'm so grateful. And I'll be here for the rest of the night if people want to connect, and that's it.
Thanks,
All right.
Carolyn.
All right?
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you.
All right, so I think Lisa's going to...
Yeah, you should stay here while she finishes.
Okay. So, Licia, are you directing the next part of this?
Sure.
Oh,
Do you want to do
Or are
a,
we missing something?
or do you want to do a little Q&A, or do you want to,
Oh, we could do some Q&A.
whatever you'd like?
Who has some Q? Anybody have Q that you'd like us to respond to? Let's go with that gentleman in the back. Is it possible for you to go over here, or are you pretty stable where you are?
Maybe you could use your mic, Licia. Great,
yeah.
thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Could you
Forgive
just-
my
could you just-
Jesuitical education.
Could you just start with your name first?
Oh, I'm
name?
Charles. A graduate of Loyola University and trained to be a Jesuit. I'm very interested in how you differentiate the soul from the spirit.
From our perspective, there really is no difference. It's the
And-
same energy.
And what I would say is the soul is each one of us individuated. Spirit is an energy like that pervades everything. So to me, we're like the drop of water in the ocean. God is the ocean. Spirit is the energy of divine love.
So probably the word God would be the one that would probably resonate with you. But if you, what we call love would be a personal expression of that energy that you would call God. There's no difference really.
And to us, the essential nature of all of those is love. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your
Do you have a question? Let's come down here. Could you stand up? That was my question. Oh, that was your question. Okay.
All right.
Wow, a twofer.
Because of the soul and the spirit were two different words
Yeah.
in my background, and I'm sure in his too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you answered it. Thank you.
great. Good.
Anybody else like us to clarify something or? All right, let's come down here. Stephen, let's bring a microphone.
Would you
Yeah.
be willing to go over to where Kevin is?
Stephen, could you just go over there?
Yeah, thank you.
Because that way, because we're streaming, this camera will be able to pick you up for the people who are watching online.
Hi, my name is Steve. It's a simple question. So, what do the weekends look like? Is
Well-
it both days? Is it full days of both weekends?
Yes, very good. So on Friday evening, we meet at 7 o'clock. We go till about 10:30. And on Saturdays, we start at 10. Generally, we complete by 9 p.m. And on Sunday, we start at 9:30 and we finish by 7:30. So those are the hours. And we, on Saturdays, have a 2-hour meal break. We take 20-minute breaks approximately every 2 hours. And on Sunday, the meal break is usually like an hour and 3/4.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, anybody else? Well, that simply means we've done a good job.
All right, Michael?
You want to go on over there?
Hi, I'm Ken. I'm a graduate, 2008. And I was going to ask you this question. I just figured I would ask it now because I'm afraid I might not get to ask it to you if you get busy in the back there. I had the fortunate experience this past Saturday, of working one-on-one with Peter Levine, which I'm assuming you obviously
Yes.
know who it is. Developer of Somatic Experiences, who's just an incredible person. I'm also training to get licensed in somatic experiencing. Anyways, I'll try to make this quick. He's working in front of us with a 26-year-old gentleman who was incredibly upset and triggered by his brother leaving his family. And he's wanted forever to put his hands through his brother's face. And he's standing and he's emotional, he's upset. And Peter does something that I sensed might be somewhat contradictory to what you have taught me, which was, he says to the guy, you need to annihilate your brother. Here, right now, you need to annihilate him.
Mm-hmm.
If police were to show up and look on the street, there would be no traces of him.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, Peter was wanting to assist him in delineating the difference between imagining and what reality is. And the gentleman stops, he imagines, he has the experience of annihilating his brother, and he's liberated. Obviously, it's something his whole body has wanted to do for a long time. It was a completion feeling. He felt like he dissolved something inside of himself. He felt like he was free. He felt like his hands were washed from wanting this. He's always held back from doing this in his mind. Held back. He had back issues. He literally felt transformed. And so, by the way, I married the woman from USM who was also in my class. So we're in the bathroom going, what the hell would Ron say? This is Peter Levine.
I'll tell you what Ron would say, because
So
I have
psychic-
the inside track. See, if you look at that experience, and you look at it through the eyes of spiritual psychology, what you describe is simply another way of describing the experience of full, compassionate self-forgiveness and letting go of any judgments, because to fully annihilate would mean, or could mean, that I'm done. I'm finished. I'm complete with my brother. That is a liberating experience. For that gentleman to have the level of experience where at the end of it, he really felt free. We know enough to know the only way that happens is if we truly complete the unfinished business that we have with whomever is the person that's the object that we're blaming our upset on. So if inside of him he used those words of annihilate, another word could be complete. But I don't go by the words of what people say. I go by what the experience is that they have. And if he had that experience, then my answer to that would be, great. He found a way to use other words in such a way that he facilitated that person into having that completion experience. Now, how do we know if that'll be lasting? Well, we don't know, only time will tell. If it reemerges, the same kinds of feelings of againstness against his brother,
Or somebody else.
or somebody, well, in this case, let's say with his brother, then we know that it didn't go to completion and that there's more work to do.
So psychic violence.
Well, I think, look,
I know it feels a little bit maybe beyond the scope of tonight, but I'm aware of that, and I just have to
why
ask
don't you come talk to one of us? Because we could talk with you more about that, but I think it is a little beyond.
I was sort of thinking the same.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say one more thing. There are such things as psychic violence.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a negative thought about anyone, that's psychic violence. The name of this game is to be able to find it within ourselves, to let go of the judgments that we hold inside. Because if you think about it, anytime we have a judgment where we make anything wrong, we pretend to know the will of Spirit. And personally, I let go of that one. So I prefer to just let go of thinking that I know what's right, and I know the way things should be, and I know what people are doing that are wrong. The instant I gave up all of that, my life started to flow in a whole different direction, and peace was present. So whatever Peter is doing, however he does it, I'd probably have to be there in the room to watch the energy flow myself. But if that guy had that experience, that's all I'm interested in. I don't care what you call it. Hooray for you. Let's see how it lasts.
Annihilation of the judgment, of the blame.
I wouldn't use the word annihilate because it has a violent tone to it. I prefer to use the word let go. A really good book about letting go would be David Hawkins wrote a book called Letting Go. It's a great book. Yeah, well, that idea. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so
Where's Licia?
Who's coming up here and
Licia. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a very rich evening. Thank you both, Ron and Mary, for taking your time and also for devoting your lives to this work. I know I speak for every single person here who has been through these programs.
Thank you. Thank you, Licia. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk just for a few minutes about enrolling in the program. Enrollment for this program is now open. And in addition to both Carolyn and Dan, who thank you very much for your sharing and who are very open to talking with you more tonight if you have questions, there are also 3 people who have also volunteered for tonight because they love this work. They have gotten so much value from this work, and so they wanted to be here in support to answering your questions. So if you 3 could stand, I'll just let everybody see who this is. Great. So there's Sarah, if you can just, she's a university faculty member, and Amber, who is a soul-centered professional coach, and David, who is a corporate engineer in a Fortune 500. And we selected these folks also because of their background so that you could also get a sense of how does this work actually apply in a variety of different lives and professions. So they're also here to answer any questions, and they'd love to talk with you, and thank you for doing so. Also, Ashley, there we go, Ashley Whitaker. She is our USM's admissions manager. She may have talked to a lot of everybody here already on the phone, and she would love to meet you tonight in person and talk further, as well as Nancy O'Leary, who is our Director of Education. And of course, I am also available to talk with you. I am one of the faculty with Ron and Mary for the Soul-Centered Living program, so happy to discuss any questions you may have about the program. So, and of course, there's also students and grads here. Who are students and grads as well? And every one of them would be delighted to share about the program with you.
They better be.
You can tell we are a highly enthusiastic group of people, so if you want to talk to any folks who had their hands raised, by all means, as well as Ron and Mary, they will also be in the back of the room if you'd like to meet them and say hello. So you may at this point be quite clear that you want to take advantage, have this opportunity. This is, as Ron and Mary announced, the last opportunity to work directly with them in this 10-month program. If you are clear that this is your next steps, we encourage you to take action tonight. You can imagine that this word is going to go out to this community. We're a very close-knit community, and so all those people who've been thinking, family and friends, co-workers, how lovely it would be to have them do it, they're going to be on the horn now for this. So we encourage you to meet with Shabnam. Shabnam, if you could just raise your hand. She's in the back of the room, and she can support you in registering and getting started. And we have a slide about that. Perhaps, John, you can put that slide up.
Are you looking at
that
this one?
There it is. Yes. Is that on? Great. So if you would like to register tonight, you can register, as I said, with Shabnam. Registration includes a first-month tuition deposit. She can talk to you about what that is. And registration is required to reserve your space in the class. Pending your acceptance into the program, we do go through an acceptance process with an acceptance committee, and so Shabnam will talk to you a little bit more about that and about the application. So we encourage you to do that if you are clear tonight. Also, in the chat, for those of you online, we will be posting a link if you would like to call and have a further conversation with an admissions advisor, with Ashley, you feel free to do that. We're going to post that link in the chat, as well as the link to apply for the online applications. So classes start the first Friday of the October weekend, first weekend of October. That is the slide up?
I don't think we have that one on here.
It should be on the sides. Okay, great. So classes start October 6th. So we heard again from Ron and Mary that this will be their last year in facilitating this program. So again, if you want to start, we encourage you check inside and get started on this. And for myself, as a personal note, I have actually taken, I believe, every single long-form program that the university has offered over the last 20 years. So I can surely say that it has changed every aspect of my life. The life that I lead today is not one I could have imagined when I started this program, not even kind of. So it's with that kind of delight and encouragement that we offer this opportunity to you now. So we also have some upcoming events that you might be interested in. As I mentioned earlier, Ron and Mary just finished their book and have just published a new book called Remembering the Light Within, A Course in Soul-Centered Living. And we are going to be having a special evening of remembering for that book. So you're all welcome to join us for that evening. And hopefully you're seeing the times up. There's the slide up. Awesome. So that's a complimentary evening if you'd like to join us. Also, we have a workshop in August called Loyalty to Your Soul. Ron and Mary and myself will be facilitating that workshop. It is an amazing opportunity in one weekend to get a real strong sense of how the principles and practices of spiritual psychology can be applied to your life. So that is also open to the public, and so by all means, I believe you received a brochure on your chairs for that. It's a great way to get a sense of how this work can really support you. And then, of course, classes, the program itself will start in October. So, of course, we here would never ask you to go home empty with an empty stomach. We are going to be having refreshments, and really it's a time for you to be able to connect with each other, connect with our community, talk to the folks that you want to talk to, take advantage of that opportunity. So we thank you both online and in person. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.